Hello, everyone. My name is Michael P. Spradlin, author of several books for middle grade and young adult readers. And I'm here on Brodart's First Chapter Friday to read the first chapter from my new book, Rise of the Spider. This is the first book in the Web of the Spider series. There will be 6 books in all. Book 1, Rise of the Spider, is set in 1929 Germany. And the series is going to follow the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party as it is seen through the eyes of 6 different individual young people. In first book, the main character is a young boy named Rolf, who lives in the town of Heroldsberg, which is a bedroom community of Nuremberg, Germany. And it will... Each book after that will feature, like I said, a different character and how what they see happening to the world around them and how they respond to it. So I hope that you'll all be out there who will be able to read it and recommend it to your patrons. And I'll just jump right in and read the first chapter. So here we go. "Goal!" I shouted as the ball squirted past Ansel and in between the 2 empty milk cans that made up our imaginary net. Ansel Becker and I practiced football each day after school. Next year, we would be old enough to try out for the school's team. Both of us dreamed of playing for the German National Football Club someday. We played in an open space in the alley just off the marketplace in our home of Heroldsberg, Germany. The alley was covered in cobblestone that, according to Papa, had been here since the Middle Ages. It was late in the day, and the shops and vineyard carts were beginning to close down for the night. "Those chestnuts smell delicious," Ansel said. "They do," I agreed. "But Mrs. Huffnagel always charges too much," Papa says. "Your Papa thinks everyone charges too much for anything, Rolf." This made me laugh. Ever since Ansel and I had first met in kindergarten, he had always been able to make me laugh. "I suppose that is true," I said. "My father, Alexander von Husen, owned a small toy factory just outside of Nuremberg. He was constantly negotiating with his suppliers and customers, and it carried over into our everyday life. Everything was a negotiation for my father, yet he was a kind man, and most seemed to accept his constant attempts at cost savings with good humor, especially these days." It was nearing dinner hour. Ansel snatched up the football, and we walked along the cobblestone street, turning next to the church. My house was 2 blocks away, a small home but comfortable. Up ahead, beyond the church, a panel van had parked on the street. Beside it, I was surprised to see my older brother, Romer, talking to someone, perhaps his age. Another man was unloading boxes from the van and carrying them into the empty shop on the street. Ansel and I stopped to watch them. The 2 newcomers wore brown shirts and black pants that were tucked into knee-high black leather boots. "Who do you think they are?" I asked, "and why would they be talking to Romer?" "Well, I heard someone say the National Socialists were opening an office here in Heroldsberg. Maybe that is them." "What are the National Socialists?" Ansel bounced the ball on the cobblestone. "Doomkopfs, dummies, according to my father. Dangerous dummies, but still, in the end, dummies." He smiled and spun the ball on his finger. Ansel was my best friend, but he did have a flair for the dramatic. "With all due respect, Ansel, as my father is with the high prices of everything, your father believes almost everyone is a dummy." "Not true," Ansel said. "He thinks almost everyone is an idiot. But I think he believes the National Socialists have achieved even greater heights of idiocy. Not only that, but the party leader, his name is Adolf Hitler, well, my father says he is full of dangerous ideas. He tried to overthrow the government in Munich several years ago." "Really?" I said. It was hard for me to imagine someone trying to completely take over a country, especially by getting rid of the government already in charge. "Yep, there was a government meeting at a beer hall in Munich. This Hitler fellow and a bunch of his goons surrounded the place and tried to take over. Several people were killed." "What? Why isn't he in jail?" "He was, according to my father, found guilty of treason, but he only served less than a year." I had to think about that for a second. "So I guess you can get away with treason?" "Apparently," Ansel said. His father was a reporter for the Nuremberg newspaper, the Zeitgeist. He had been reporting on events in Germany ever since the Great War, which had ended in 1918. Germany was badly defeated and forced to sign a treaty with the Allied nations. Ansel's father had done most of his reporting from the front lines. He had even been injured in a chemical gas attack. I had no doubt his knowledge came from his father, who always appeared to know everything that was going on everywhere in the country. The treaty called for our country to pay for all the damages and destruction caused during the war. Some said it was too much. Germany would never be able to repay it. Now it was 1929, and by trying to pay the debt, the country was slowly choking to death. At least that was what I overheard people saying. Every day in the marketplace as I passed by for school, I could hear the old men who gathered on the benches outside the shops remark about how bad things were. And the poor economy and lack of jobs and money were what Ansel's father had been reporting on for the last few years. It was a strange and stressful time in Germany. Many were frightened as thoughts of what the future might hold for the nation. And your father thinks everything who doesn't agree with him is an idiot, I said. Also true, Ansel said. Papa said many in Germany were out of work, suffering without food, jobs, or hope. Things were not so bad here in Heroldsberg. At least they didn't seem to be. Whenever I took the time to think about anything other than school or football, people here worked. Heroldsberg had become famous for making cloth and fabric. I guess since people always needed cloth and fabric, jobs were more available, and life wasn't as difficult as it was in the bigger cities, where the factories were shuttered, or the smaller villages, which had little to offer in terms of jobs. Heroldsberg was a small town. Only a few thousand people lived here. Besides the fabric factories, there was a lot of farming in the area, and it was less than 15 kilometers from Nuremberg, so people could live here and take the train in the morning to work at jobs in the city, returning home in the evening. My family hadn't traveled much, with my mother deceased, my father working in his factory for long hours every day, and the general lack of money for extra things like travel. I had never really been anywhere except Nuremberg, besides a weekend trip to Munich when my brother Romer played in a football tournament. Truthfully, I did not mind. I thought Heroldsberg was the most perfect place in the world. It was certainly beautiful. It was full of twisty cobblestone streets, and some of the houses were hundreds of years old and built with sloped roofs. In the winter, when the roofs were covered with snow, they looked as if they belonged in a fairy tale. But now we had reached the shop where the van was being unloaded. Ansel and I waited, watching the young men work up close. I guess both of the two newcomers to be around 16 or 17 years old. They were neat and clean in their appearance. Their hair was perfectly cut and combed, and their shirts were crisp and pressed, as if the exercise of doing the moving and lifting had caused them no fuss whatsoever. When they saw us watching, one of them approached us. "Don't bother talking to them," said Romer. "That's my little brother Rolf and his stupid friend Ansel. Pay them no mind." Excuse me, Romer," Ansel said. "I'm the idiot friend, not the stupid friend. There's a difference." Romer's eyes narrowed and he glared at Ansel. Most of the time, Ansel could insult Romer and he didn't even know it. Romer always was into the fact that he could not get one over on Ansel, ever. "Oh, I don't mind. My name is Hans and this is Nils. And we are like it when brothers get involved," Hans said. He held out his hand to shake. Ansel and I didn't say anything at first, nor did we take his hand. Romer glared at us for being rude, his light blue eyes flashing with anger. That was what he wanted, what he seemed to be all the time lately, angry. And for the life of me, I didn't know why. Romer had everything. He was smart, athletic, and popular in school. But in the last few months, a change had come over him. He was short-tempered and irritable. He now spent many hours in his room reading. It was strange to me how much his behavior had altered. Romer was 15. He was already over 6 feet tall and strong, an exceptional athlete. He ran long distance and played football for his school club teams. On the pitch, he was fast and fluid, ball moving as if it were attached to his foot with a string. But he could change direction and stop and start in a heartbeat and leave his opponents twirling in circles. The club coach at Romer School said that he thought he might be able to make the German national team someday. He was that good. "Wouldn't that be great, Romer?" I said once as we kicked the ball back and forth in the street in front of our house. "Yes, Rolf, that would be fine, but it is a long way away, if it ever happens," he had said. Now he stood here talking to Hans and Nils, and I couldn't help but think that Hans was Romer's mirror image in many ways. Tall and blond with piercing blue eyes as he held his hands out, but Ansel refused to shake it, except, I don't know what it was, but there was something off about Hans. For one thing, he was tall and extremely skinny. Almost all of him was arms and legs. His eyes were larger than normal and round. He never held eye contact when he spoke to you. Rather, his eyes darted from place to place, and if he did look in your direction, it was never directly at you. "What is it we could be getting involved in? Will there be food?" Ansel asked. Hans's hand returned to his side, and Ansel recited from a list he claimed to keep of unassailable facts of life, number 17. On the list was, everything goes better with food. Ah, said Hans, not answering the question, and I see you are both football fans, like Romer here? We shrugged, not knowing who this person was, only knowing that his appearance and manner had somehow set off alarm bells in our head. He kept his long arms at his side bent at an angle, as if he were getting ready to march. It was as if we were talking to a spider. He was too smooth, as if he had experienced his whole life without any challenges or upsets, like one of the rich boys at school who never seemed to be bothered by anything. He stood there watching us as we fidgeted, nodding and probably wondering why we were talking to him openly and trying not to think of a way to engage in more conversation. I love to watch the national team, Hans finally. I saw them play in Berlin last year. That Richard Hoffman, my goodness, what a player. There was going to be a new tournament in football next year called the World Cup. It would take place in Uruguay in South America and invite the best teams from all around the globe to come play against each other until an eventual winner was crowned. Germany had an excellent professional team, and we thought we had a good chance of beating anyone from another country. Ansel and I were really looking forward to the tournament until we learned that Germany would not be participating after all. There was no money to send a team. As if he were reading our minds, Hans said, "It's such a pity Germany will not participate in the World Cup tournament next year. But I guess we can blame our Weimar government for that." Hans smiled curiously when he said it, as if it gave him great pleasure to insult the Weimar Republic. Ansel's eyes narrowed slightly. The truth was, if Hans had managed to see the great Richard Hoffman in person, Ansel would no doubt be jealous. When he was jealous, he liked to agitate people. Ansel loved football more than almost anything else, and Hoffman was his favorite player. Since he already didn't like Hans, he for sure did not like the fact that Hans had seen Hoffman play in person. "What are you doing here?" Ansel asked sharply. Hans startled, drawing his head back ever so slightly, as if he'd been surprised by Ansel's tone. "Ansel, don't be rude," Romer said, raising his voice. "It's okay, Romer," Hans said. "That is a good question, my friend." His companion stopped unloading and reached his hand out to us to shake. We didn't shake with him either, and he awkwardly returned his hand to his side. Hans continued, "Nils and I work for the youth division of the National Socialist Workers' Party." "The Nazi Party," Ansel said. Since his father was a reporter, Ansel had a much deeper knowledge of current events. All the different political parties had members in offices all over the country. When the country and people were so poor, politics gave them something to think about, to root for or against. At least that was how Ansel described it. Politics had become a sport, like football. Hans and Nils seemed to grimace a bit when he said it, as if they had accidentally revealed the secret code to something. But Hans nodded. "Well, yes, that is another name our organization sometimes uses," he said. I had never heard about these things unless until they were written about in the newspaper, and we seldom got the paper when we were trying to save money. Sometimes Papa would read a paper to us during dinner. If it was gossip or trash news, as my father called it, it was unlikely we would ever hear anything about it. We did not own a radio, so we did not receive any of the daily newscasts. Papa had intended to get one, but they were too expensive. But he lamented the fact that he did not have access to news, especially the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, which broadcast all over Europe and was actually among the most reliable sources for news, according to Papa. "Say what you want about the Brits, but they pull no punches when it comes to reporting the news." Well, if you enjoy football, hiking, camping, and other sports, I think you would be interested in our organization. We spend a great deal of time participating in these things to help build healthy minds and bodies for Germany's future leaders. It was exhausting and hard to keep up with everything that Hans said. He started talking about elections and political parties, but I found that every time there was an election, there were several new groups or parties that formed together to try to make things better if they were elected. Although sometimes the people wondered, were they really trying to make things better for all Germany or just for themselves? I didn't know that things had changed for all of us on that day. That would come later. As I looked over my shoulder at Hans, who glared back at me with an icy stare, I only knew one thing. There was a spider among us. And that's chapter 1 of The Rise of the Spider by Michael P. Spradlin. And you can visit my website, michaelspradlin.com, for more information. And to email me, contact me, arrange a library or school visit, whatever. anything, just drop me a note. And thank you for paying attention, and I'll see you out there.